Good afternoon and welcome to the 2022 CCMA SLCE Conference Community Engaged Practitioner Focused Session. I will now share a few reminders and information about this session. Please rename yourselves, including your institution and your organization name and pronouns. This session is being recorded, as Kate indicated, and will be shared on Campus Compact's Mid-Atlantic website. We will begin this afternoon session with an overview of the program by Sheila. Sheila, I actually forgot to ask you, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Myman.
Myman, okay. Miss Sheila Myman is the director of Raritan Valley's RISE program, and she's going to talk more about that and give us an overview. She's also an associate professor of mathematics. While she is speaking, please mute your microphones and keep them muted until we get to the later portion, which will allow you to ask some questions about this afternoon session. Each of the afternoon sessions speakers are affiliated with Raritan Valley Community College, located in Bridgeburg, New Jersey, specifically the Returning and Incarcerated Student Education, or RISE, as it's also known, program. Raritan Valley began offering credited courses inside New Jersey State's correctional facilities a dozen years ago. Today, RVCC is an associate degree level matriculating institution in these institutions statewide, enrolling an average of 500 students each semester in liberal arts transfer degree programs. RVCC has been privileged to see the successful progression of its students and to hear its faculty talk about their deeply moving experiences while working inside the state's correctional facilities. RVCC RISE is a strong advocate of equitable inside education, frequently supports other institutions embarking on this work, and is active second chance Pell participant. So without further ado, I welcome Sheila.
Myman.
Every time I look at it, I want to call it something else.
That's okay. We're pretty informal, so that's what it is. It's like my man.
My man. I'll remember that. Thank you.
Anyway,
Sheila.
Thanks, Sarah. It's nice to join all of you here in New Jersey. With me today are Nina Law, who is a theater professor, and she does campus-based teaching. She's taught at a variety of other institutions, and she's been a core member of our faculty at Raritan Valley. And we have Juan Robinson and Nicholas Gomez. And Juan and Nick are both alumni of this program of Raritan Valley, and they're actually working on campus, employed on campus, helping us implement this program now. So I'm going to give you a brief idea of the program, its inception, where we're at, what we do, and then we're all going to join each other in a conversation. You can go on next, Kate. Thank you. As Sarah mentioned, we're an academic transfer associate degree program. We are statewide in our reach. We work with the state correctional facilities. New Jersey's not a huge geographic state. I would guess there's about 3 hours between our campus and some of our prison campuses, which is aggressive, but it's something that is, as we talk further today, we're going to see how important it's been to be able to have a statewide matriculating institution. We serve the women, and that's actually where we started serving. We serve the adult men. We serve students who are categorized as youth, which in New Jersey does not mean juvenile, it means the 18 to 30 age range. Mostly in medium, really all in medium and maximum security facilities. Our students are diverse, much more diverse than people on the street in the state of New Jersey. In fact, about 80% of our students are people of color inside. We have the unfortunate distinguishing mark in New Jersey of having the highest level of racial disparity for people who are incarcerated in the state. History-wise, we began inside in 2019, 2010, a dozen years ago. And it was completely a faculty-driven grassroots effort. We looked around, we said, hey, we're a community college. What are we doing to serve the community that we live in? Because look, there are these couple institutions in our sending districts that have people housed there who are incarcerated, and how are we serving that part of our community? And so we started. We had some innocent, friendly conversations with some of the leadership in those facilities and said, hey, we want to come in and teach. And we decided at the beginning, and you can argue whether this was the right decision, it's certainly not the only decision, but that we wanted to offer accredited coursework. We're a college, we're not a enrichment kind of program for education. We do credited work. And we said, if we're going to do this, we'd like to do it the way we do on campus and issue actual college credit for the work people are earning and treat it as if it's just an extension of our campus. So we've done that from the beginning. We initially had a little bit of seed grant funding, and starting in 2016, we became a Second Chance Pell site, which is a U.S. Department of Education federal student aid experiment that has gotten much larger in the time. In 1994, people who were incarcerated lost the right to have Pell Grants nationwide. In 2015, President Obama signed legislation that said, let's figure out what it would take to return that right to people who are incarcerated. So he named a set of initial colleges to experiment and see how we do that. And we were one of those. We've been very privileged to. It's been an interesting road trying to be part of a federal experiment, but it's let us expand our reach for students. And in the end of 2020, right at the change of the administration, the return to Pell was made permanent and will be implemented. Target time is next year across the United States. Next one, please. We educate about 500 students on average per semester. We teach 3 semesters a year. We enroll about 7,500 credits, 160 course sections annually. We have several hundred inside graduates, and I'm going to show you some pictures of our graduations at the end of this. And we have students who successfully transfer. And when you're a community college doing a transfer degree, it's very important that you can show that your students are successful, not only being accepted, but completing in transfer programs elsewhere. And we have a number of students who have done that. We have students that are already in their master's programs. Our institutional commitment has been very strong, and that's one of the key reasons we've succeeded. This wasn't somebody said, oh, let's just do this, go staff a group and do this. This was grassroots. So this came up through the faculty, up through our forum. We've got, which is our shared governance model. I don't know if you guys use that term or not. Our president of the college has been supportive continually. Our board of trustees has been supportive. And we would not be able to do what we do if we didn't have that institutional support and belief in this. Our full-time faculty is allowed to teach in load in any of our prison campuses. We do an intensive amount of teacher training. It's one-on-one. And Nina may be able, as we go through, to talk about it if she remembers when she first began in this program, how much training we go through. We do training with the DOC, we do training in group sessions, we do training in individual to make sure that when our faculty goes in, they're comfortable, they're confident, and they comply with the requirements of that environment. We do get some financial support from the college funds because Pell certainly doesn't pay for everything. And partnerships have been key. We have a lot of partnerships across the state of New Jersey, and even sliding a little bit into Pennsylvania. We have colleges that we recruit adjunct faculty at. So right now in the prison that's more than 3 hours away from me, I have adjuncts that we have credentialed that happen to have full-time jobs at University of Pennsylvania. teaching some of our students. So those instructional partnerships across the state with other colleges and universities have helped us make sure we have a rich set of committed faculty in any of the areas that we need to go. It's been interesting during COVID. We've had to do some pivoting, but we've been able to maintain. Next, please. From an academic perspective, we've got some things we're very committed to. One is that this will be an equitable level of education. The students inside need the same or better academic preparation as we get on campus or with our online students. They have the same courses, they have the same exams and assessments, they've got the same learning outcomes. We have the same professor credentialing that we do on campus, and our campus is actually pretty strict about professor credentialing. I talked about transferability. We have a law in New Jersey that says if a student completes a degree at a community college, they must be accepted at the state universities in a similar major as a junior, and we've had no problem implementing that, both with our release students, and we've recently been joined by Rutgers, who's now teaching the second half of a BA inside the prisons also. So we have students on the inside and the outside. And it's been great because as we watch our students graduate with their bachelors, we're seeing them graduate as honors graduates from Rutgers. So we know that their preparation's been valid and solid. Course diversity. It's a liberal arts degree, and we chose that on purpose because those degrees have so many different course elements to it that almost anyone can find something they like to learn about. So we have all the compositions and the mathematics and the arts and the languages and the literatures and the histories and social science and philosophy. And one of the things Raritan has put probably our biggest amount of effort in is making sure that we can successfully bring in STEM courses. So we have a number of full-fledged lab courses that go into prisons. Now, that may sound simple, but we are a zero-tech prison system in New Jersey. These are all face-to-face classes, and we have no technology access. We cannot, our students don't have computers, we don't have internet, we don't have smart boards, we don't have calculus, we don't have much of anything technology-wise. And we've been able to find valid ways to deliver these courses without that. When one of the important academic policies or philosophies for us is that our students can transition to campus upon release. If you are not done your AA and you are released, you do not have to reapply, you don't have to reveal your background, you don't have to do anything. You slide right on campus and keep going with your classes. The only organization that might know that you have been incarcerated is mine. It's a privacy issue. Some students choose to reveal their background and they're proud of the distance they've come. Others choose to keep it private, but Raritan doesn't screen for that as a background. We don't, again, determine if these students can come to main campus. It's one school to us. Next, please. One of our hallmarks as a program is that we have taken student support and brought it into the prisons. They can't come to us. They can't log in and go on our website. They can't do any of those functions and use those tools that students on campus have. So we bring the functions of student services into the prison campuses. We do reentry conversations. We do transfer advising. We do study skills. We have library services. We work every year with every student on degree completion, helping them understand what they've taken, how they've done with it, and what they need to take in addition to complete their degree. We do financial aid work there. We do placement testing and other placement assessments there. We talk about data literacy. So we've brought those functions inside. If you flip to the next slide, the primary mechanism we use for that is something called the RV Hub. And in addition to being a faculty member, Nina is also one of our RV Hub advisors. On campus, our faculty are asked to do advising hours with students. Well, our faculty who work inside also do and are compensated for advising hours with our inside students. So they get a special level of training. When you're in a prison and you're a student, you don't get to go to office hours. When class is over, students go one way, professors go another, and you can't have those casual conversations that students value so much. So we've set up this function that is scheduled multiple times a week in each facility, where we have trained faculty advisors. If you're having a problem in a course, you can come talk to them. Now, Nina sometimes laughs because I'm a math professor and she's a theater professor. And, you know, if she gets a calc problem, she's going to say, let me go back to your teacher and figure out what we can do to support you. If I get a theater question, I'm just going to call Nina because I can't help with that. But you have a trained faculty person, and 90% of the questions that we get from our students that they would ask in office hours are really about study skills. And any trained professor can assist a student with that. We have visiting faculty that will come depending on the course mix that's in that facility that semester, etc. So that RV Hub functions as a liaison between the campus and the student and brings those services in. Next. From a library perspective, we manage a lending library on campus. It has about 8,000, a little over 8,000 books. Juan's very involved in helping manage that right now. Every book that we take into the facilities and every published article has to be pre-approved by the Department of Corrections. And then after the approval happens, and sometimes that has to have a 3 to 6 month lead time to get approval, we bring those in for our courses. We do it with a lending library. I may buy a set of geology books, and those books will get issued out to students at the end of the semester. They'll be collected, refurbished, and then replaced in the library until they get used again. It helps us manage costs and make sure that everybody has access to the proper course material. We also create research packs. We work with our research librarians on campus. If a professor is assigning a research paper and a student picks XYZ topic, a research pack gets prepared. Again, they don't have databases in which to access these things. So we prepare it with some really good scholarly material, some okay material, and some junky material. And the student has to sift through to try to emulate the research experience. From a negotiations perspective, we are working with our Department of Corrections to try to get a unnetworked JSTOR equivalent scholarly research access, but that hasn't happened yet. We also provide curricular support. We bring our research librarians in for sessions with students to talk about data and information literacy, because that's something they have very, very low availability of that information inside. And it's becoming a problem when people come outside to be able to adapt to this very information rich, but information curated world that we're in. Next. And finally, one of the things which is the only way we've been able to survive, is doing student data management. We have a massive amount of information about our program. We keep track of students at a different level than we do on campus. Some of our students have a birth name, a changed legal name that's not in Social Security. They have street names, they have preferred names. It's a suite that we have to keep track of, because when we refer to somebody, we need to make sure it's a name that's contextually going to be appropriate and safe for them. We do an awful lot of financial reporting that's required for the Department of Education. We track our assets in a data bank. We have a communications tracker for students. We use a system that we were actually given access to this during COVID. It was the only win I can come up with for the time of COVID that we've been in. Every facility has a backbone network, and they have kiosks in the wings that people can access. And those kiosks can be used to send complaints to the administration of the facility. They've set me up as a administrator of each facility, and students can file a complaint to me. But it's not really a complaint. It's a, I don't understand on page 432, problem number 7, that is not making any sense to me. And how does that connect to this reading? We collect all of those. And this is not email. This is a very clunky, weird old system. We collect those, we pop them into a modern communication system with our teachers. It gets sent out to the teacher that the question is for. We collect the teacher's response and get it back to the student. And that's helped us enormously. Now, I'm going to show you, if you want to click it to the next slide, please. I'm going to show you some of our successes. This was a graduation in one of our prisons just a few months before COVID began. We have 56. We have 56 graduates.
Where are y'all at?
I think somebody's not muted, maybe. We have 56 graduates that day. This graduate was this gentleman was our graduation speaker. This was covered by CBS News. He's an honors graduate, as you can see by the cord around his neck. He actually chose to stay in prison longer so that he could graduate there and have his son see him speak as valedictorian. Next one. We've been in the women's facility, and these are intentionally blurred to be at the, it's not that the pictures are bad quality, there's a privacy issue, so I blurred the faces. In most cases, the earliest graduation in the state of New Jersey for colleges was held in 2013. And that's, you see the women in khaki colored uniforms. That's all they were permitted, versus now that looks like a much more normal graduation photo. As our partnership with the Department of Corrections has advanced, we hold real, colorful, pomp and circumstance, president on the stage, families in the audience graduations. Next. This graduation is at this was the first graduation at the facility that's 3 hours away from us. You can't really see the smiles, but there are an awful lot of proud folks there. And finally, an article appeared just about 3 months ago in the New York Times, in the last slide, please, that focused on 3 different people who'd left prison during a pandemic. And the gentleman on the graduation photo, clear on the left, who was our valedictorian and did our graduation speech, was one of the students focused in that. So the picture from the New York Times shows he and his family at that graduation and profiles how education made such a difference in his life. So you can bring the slides down now if you would. We're going to just talk about some questions. I'm going to start with Nina. Nina, what influenced you to start teaching in this program?
If I go back, I was a new teacher, right? So I started teaching in 2016. I became an adjunct at community college in 2016, and I really wanted to cut my teeth, if you will. Right? I wanted to gain more experience. So I actively searched out the DOC, and there was a notion to me that perhaps what would teaching in facilities look like? Do they even have a program like that? So I inquired about it, and then I was connected to RVCC through the DOC, and was given great opportunity to learn the ropes, to see what that dynamic of teaching looked like. So it was something that I was brand new. I had an idea that, or I had a question, what are they doing to serve this population? And does a program exist, right? So then I used some contacts and I pursued it actively myself.
Great. It's interesting. I think a lot of our professors feel personally drawn to support this population from an equity perspective, which is wonderful. What's the difference, though, between teaching a course on campus and teaching a course inside? What's it feel like? How's it different? And how's it the same?
There are a lot of differences. Yeah. There are a lot of differences and some similarities. The most immediate difference is the lack of technology inside, which is not it's not a lack of technology. Let's say it's the benefit of not having technology inside, right? In the sense that you are using different skill sets as an instructor inside than you're using outside. And if we start at the beginning, just getting into a community, into these different facilities, I've noticed, Sheila, that I'm wearing everything I'm not supposed to be wearing, everything I couldn't wear moving inside, which is not intentional, but just the manner of dress and the way that you present yourself to move into facilities. For example, I'm wearing large earrings, I'm wearing blue, I'm wearing a hoodie, clips, right? So all of this would be prohibited moving forward into the facilities. You do have checkpoints, you do have metal detectors that you move through. But then also the idea that it is its own community and it has its own set of rules and it has its own customs, and there is a whole shift in mindset when you move inside. There are people around, there are officers around who are very helpful in helping you to navigate through that community. A whole different cloak that you wear when you step into any one of these facilities, which are all different on their own. And then the student body is different than outside, than in traditional college settings. Inside, there are, as you said in your introduction of scope, Sheila, that 80% of the population are of color. And inside, they have a very different perspective, different lens at which they look at material. In my case, in theater material, at plays, at different, for an instance, we look at Othello, we look at Shakespeare's Othello, we read through it, we examine it. They look at the men and women inside have a very different perspective and approach to Othello than they do in traditional college settings and other students. They have a wealth of knowledge, they have different experience, they have different personalizations inside. When we look at plays, we look at the characters of plays. And then in traditional college settings, I've noticed that they can be more observant in the lesson, right? They are willing to sit back and absorb and to pull from your knowledge base. Whereas inside, the students are very interactive. They digest it in a very different way. And there's a lot of conversation that happens, in the classroom. So yes, this lack of technology or the benefit of not having technology offers a more engaging environment. Whereas they are really up to their elbows in dissecting the information and trying to understand it in a comprehensive way. And then in traditional college settings, yes, there is more of a reliance or an expectation to use technology in the classroom, which offers a very different dynamic in absorbing or combing through the material.
Thank you. I think that's a great picture of it. One of the questions almost every totally new teacher asks us is, will it be scary? Nina, I don't know if you asked that at the beginning, but almost every new teacher does.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is, go ahead, Sheila, I'm sorry.
No, just like, tell me your reaction to that after having a lot of experience.
So initially, yes, you never really knew what to expect. And the only, speaking for myself, the only thing I had to go from was what I seen in the media or what I had seen on HBO or TV or whatever. That was the only source that I had or that would give me a depiction. But after being in the program for a while, it is entirely the opposite. It is not scary at all. There is a shift in mindset when you do walk into different facilities, but you'll go through those checkpoints. But then once you get into the community, once you move through that, and then you're in the center of the community with the buildings around you, there are residents, if you will, of the community who have jobs, and they see you, they recognize you, they say, "Good morning, professor," or they might call across the yard because they recognize you. "Hi, Professor Law," and you acknowledge them. There's this mutual respect. They respect that you are bringing a knowledge base to them, that they respect that you have taken the time to meet with them, and that you see value in their learning. So there is this appreciation, there's this deep appreciation when you work in different facilities and when you're meeting in the classroom. But no, if anything, it is just, I feel so fulfilled because there's a gratitude there. Not at all scary, not intimidating. I've never felt compromised. I've never felt that anything was inappropriate for me. I've always felt that the officers have a keen eye on me, and even to the sense that students inside the classroom, they will say, "Oh, Professor Law, you can't go out now because something else is happening." They're very informative, and they're very, they are concerned for the well-being of professors in that environment. So not at all scary, no.
Yeah, it's good to put that elephant on the table, because that's one of the first things people think. And my teachers almost all tell me, especially once you get in the classroom and the door's closed, you forget you're in prison pretty much entirely. It's you're with students, and that's all the people are in the room, and it's wonderful. I'm going to switch to a question for Nick and Juan. When you were taking your courses inside, what was your favorite, or what was the most impactful courses or subjects you studied? Juan, you want to go first?
Yeah, for me personally, it was probably world religions. For me, world religions probably had the biggest impact on me, because it allowed me to get a different outlook on things that I had never sat down and thought about. So understanding how different cultures live, how different people interact. In America, we typically, we have predominant religions, and you don't really get to, interact or, learn of those other religions in the world, Taoism, like, and so for me, that was one of the biggest, most impactful classes that I taken. Gave me a lot of just informative information, and put things in their proper perspective for me about how to be, intelligent, culturally intelligent, about the differences of everybody, and why people do certain things, why people interact the way they do, why people, where this belief system comes from, or um, just those little things that make your conversations different with people, or make you be a little bit more empathetic with people, when you're going through, because you don't have that ignorance that a lot of times causes people to, say or do things that they don't really mean no harm, where they just lack the information to really be able to be a little bit more understanding, or a little bit more interactive with people. So for me, it was world religions.
That's good. Thank you. Nick?
For me, I would say that I really enjoyed the English Comp 102 and 101 classes that I took, as well as the cultural, what was that? What was the communications? it's introducing. It was like it was a cultural class, and we were really trying to break down.
Intercultural communications, probably. Yeah.
Exactly, that's what it was.
Mm.
So it was the intercultural communication classes, because those classes, the cultural and communication class was beneficial to me because for the same reason that Juan spoke on, it kind of gave me insight on how just other communities interact with one another and interact with the world around them. And so when having that understanding allows you to try to look at things through a different lens. And when you see through things through a different lens, you can see a broader perspective of or you can see a broader perspective, you can see other people's point of views, and it makes communication a lot easier, which is always useful, I think. And then for me, English comp, because I actually hate writing. I didn't like writing very well. And that class taught me how to write. And it taught me really how to organize and structure any type of paper I'm doing. And it really was a strong foundation for being able to write in such a way that it could be even considered professional way that, or, that is what other colleges are looking at, other even organizations are looking for. And they really instill these skills on how to dissect and structure a paper that you want to create, right? Or a thought you're trying to put down, in writing. And those gave me the foundations for that, which I really lacked before. So so that's why those classes were the most impactful for me.
Thank you. Another question for you guys. Do either of you have any experience inside of either being mentored by a more experienced student or mentoring a newer student yourself? Because that's something we see a lot of in our student body inside. Do you guys have personal experience?
Me personally, yes. A lot. Being a older individual, we at a youth correctional facility. For those who don't know, which is, as Sheila pointed, not juveniles but young adults, and I kind of grew through that environment. So towards the end, when I was getting my degree, a lot of the people that were coming through the program behind me tended to be um, younger, youthful, and kind of uncertain of what to expect or what to do, what the whole college atmosphere was expecting of them. You know, sometimes you get discouraged if you don't really know anything, because as Sheila alluded to, you don't necessarily have the same resources that somebody outside does, but you're trying with the limited ones that you have. So a lot of my role before I graduated was kind of, tutoring, mentoring, even if it just was a conversation. Somebody wanted to drop a class just to try to give them some type of, positive reinforcement or encouragement, to pull what you can pull out of it and make the best out of it, rather than just, turning around and at the first sign of adversity, you're willing to quit something that will ultimately serve you a great benefit. Because we don't have a lot of you get your teachers for a certain amount of time, but you can't just pick up your phone or you email them or get that from them. So as far as the mentoring process, yes, and the community was strong. So when I started going to school, people helped me, and individuals encouraged me, and gave me positive reinforcement. And my teachers helped me, and other individuals who were graduating from the program helped me, and I could see what they were benefiting, and how a conversation that I had with somebody a year before, that same conversation sounds a little bit different now that you were in school, and that, as Nick alluded to, you kind of had a broader perspective. You had learned things that kind of advance your conversation or your cognitive thinking or even your cognitive listening. So that's my experience personally.
Yeah, and I can also say on from my end that it was always a peer assistance. People want to help each other. People want to show success rates. In my particular cases, I've always seen study groups, especially with like the biology classes and the history classes, where it takes a lot of memorization. And so people would make these little study groups when they can back at the units, as if it was like a regular college. And it was a very uplifting environment, and that really brought a lot of appreciation to every individual student, myself included, towards the teachers and the program in general, because it really gave us the tool sets to and the ability to really start working on things that matter outside of, you know, what else is going on inside those prisons. It's like that right there was not only just an escape, but it was actually a beneficial experience, because it made us socialize and made it gain this better understanding of the academic world and really how to apply that. And so on our ends, we definitely had a lot of peer help when we couldn't get to the teachers, as Juan said, because we don't have emails, we don't have phones. So we always relied on each other, and I helped others and others have helped me, and it all depends on different subjects. Some people are better at math, some people are better at writing. So that's one of those things.
Thank you. Juan, can you talk a little bit about the intergenerational impact of getting a degree inside? Juan's a dad.
Well, one of the greatest accomplishments for me was, regardless of where it was having my son be in presence to see me graduate, for him to see me take something negative and turn it into a positive, to have this you know, not to be exaggerated, this like astronomical accomplishment, and to see it firsthand. Like, you didn't hear about it, you didn't, you know, I didn't tell you about it, I didn't explain it to you. You see me walk across the stage, you see me receive a degree, you see me in cap and gown. And that kind of gave him a lot of, you know, like preparation, or a lot of that aspiration to say, well, my dad was incarcerated and he did that, then I really don't have no excuse. I can't, you know, nothing, you know, God forbid that he's ever going to go through will be similar to my story. So it's, you know, in his mind, it's like, well, if he can do that, then I can do that. And I don't think that without him seeing that and just knowing what my circumstances were, that he would have had that same perspective, that he would have looked upon it the same way. Even with me telling him that I graduated in jail, or that showing him a degree, you know, sometimes that visual effect is very much different for a child. So he's 13 now, and he's fully focused on what his next step in life is going to be. But a lot of that comes from him being able to witness, I want to say, kind of like a growth within me, and a culmination of a lot of the things that he's seen when I would be talking to him, and I got to hang up, I'm going to class. And then you finally can see that culmination, and then we fast forward, and now I'm free, and you see me working within the school setting, working within the program, which helped me to become the man that I am. And it just kind of gives him a different outlook on life, and it kind of, you know, advances the things that he wants to do.
Thank you. Nick, you want to talk a little bit about doors that were open for you because you did your degree work inside?
Absolutely. So once I graduated in 2021 of the summer, by transferring over my last remaining credits to Raritan, I was able to accomplish over 40 credits within the prison systems. And with those classes I took, with the degree I had, I was able to actually apply and be chosen for a Princeton University REU, because they're which is a research education opportunity for undergraduates. And it opened my eyes into a STEM field that I actually enjoy. It was computational biology, and I was able to get into a program that required strong research abilities, strong both oral and written communication skills, and a lot of critical thinking. And the program helped me be prepared for that, right? I wouldn't have that ability without being taught the basics of Comp 101 and 102. Like I said, it's terrible at writing before that, right? So, and it really gave me the skills I needed to actually get into the RU and do well. And from there, that all these doors start opening in a chain reaction. I was able to get into another program with the Columbia University. It's called Justice Through Code, where I was learning how to Python code now, and I got my certifications from there. I'm also currently enrolled with another program through Columbia University doing data analytics with Google. So all these doors opened up, and they're still opening up after, like, as a domino effect coming from this program. So this program definitely opened up a whole bunch of different doors, and it gave you the skill set to continue walking after you get through those doors, right? It's one thing to have a door open, but it's another thing to be trained enough and prepared enough to keep moving after that door is open. Sheila, you're unmuted.
Thank you. One last question for you too. We are traditionally a face-to-face program in RISE. How important was it for you to have teachers coming inside for class versus, I see a lot of prisons that allow only correspondence education that people sign up for. How important was it for you to have those face-to-face relationships with your teachers?
Tremendous. As I said before, it's just to be able to, you have very limited resources already. So to have problems or to be able to troubleshoot and not be able to interact with an individual, that it sometimes is just discouraging, and sometimes you get discouraged to the point where you want to quit. And so face to face, being able to have, that communal, like that community, and to be able to just, to feel what you're being taught, to be able to lean on somebody else's understanding of a particular subject, for somebody to be able to accept your questions and, your inquiries, and, fix them or tell you that you're on the right track. A lot of that is necessary because when you're incarcerated, one of the biggest things that you tend to run into is disappointment and despair. So sometimes if you're dealing with something as extensive as college, and you get into a subject to where you're disappointed, or it's not particularly your strong suit, and you have nobody there for positive reinforcement, no one to help you, no type of face-to-face interaction, a lot of times you'll deviate. So that face-to-face interaction is kind of like the backbone of somebody being able to complete, most people, not all people, but most people, because sometimes you don't have that particular get up and go that other people have. Sometimes you need a little bit more motivation. You need to see your professor 2 times a week for them to ask you, where's your paper? Where's your work? Why didn't you complete this? Why didn't you complete that? Rather than you leaning on, your own personal motivation. And although we should all have our own personal motivation, sometimes it's just not always there, or it doesn't always project itself in the way that it should be. So I believe that face-to-face interaction in terms of college is a necessity.
And I could say on my end that the difference is like night and day, right? So when you have these distant packets, what you're almost doing is showing these isolated parts of information, right? And so there's no real, not just community, as well as speaking. That's definitely true. There's no community when you're doing distance packets, but there's a lack. There's something lacking when you don't have that classroom setting, right? When you don't have the community between your peers, even, right? Because when they're sitting in the classroom next to you, you have that desk right there. You have everything right there to you, as opposed to having a packet, especially within prison systems. You're getting a packet sent to you in your cell, right? So the mental switch happens once they're in person, when they're in that desk in front of and the teacher looking at them, explaining what's going on. You can ask questions right there and then and get certain answers or clarifications on certain things. You can't do that with distant packets. You're gonna have to infer whatever you can infer. And sometimes that's good, right? You get those critical thinking skills. But a lot of times it's good to know exactly what the author may have meant. We're dealing with, we got to think of when we're dealing with individuals that may or may not have, that likely never had this type of academic level of learning. And so I think it's good to have someone that with a strong understanding to be able to break down what it is that the subject is trying, or that the author and the subject is trying to convene. And so it's completely different as opposed to in person and packet classes, right? I think packet classes can be done well. There's certain definitely ways to do it, as long as you're constantly asking how things are working and how what needs to be changed within the student population as you're doing it, and you guys can give help that way that it could work. Just the in-person is very much better, for sure.
Thanks. Nina, has teaching inside impacted your pedagogy?
Yes. And I can say impacted as recently as 1 hour ago, impacted. So as I had stated, teaching inside, we're not offered the privilege or the luxury of leaning on technology. A lot of it is facilitating class discussions. It's interactive, it's presenting information and allowing students to comb through and, to engage in conversation with each other. So I just came off of teaching a class on a traditional college campus, and it's a theater class, and we were exploring Eastern theater, so theater with today's, and I had so many videos and so many ways for students to experience Asian theater, because it has to be experienced. So I put together so many video clips, and then when I got there, technology crashed, and I didn't have anything that I had prepared. So it became a straight lecture. And the benefit of doing that is, I had the skill set to just seamlessly transfer to lecture mode because I was in practice of doing that. I had honed skills inside where it was not foreign. It was no need for panic or like that. I just shifted to lecture mode. And then in that traditional setting, it was like classroom had just come alive, more so than they had been in weeks. The classroom, students, even without the visual and just them engaging their imaginations and trying to envision in their minds on what type of theater could look like, reminded me that it's similar of what we're seeing inside, is that their minds are so active and they're plugged in and they're just engaged in the entire lesson, which is what was happening on this traditional campus. So yes, it has influenced my style in presenting information, that I don't need to be so heavily reliant on technology, even though theater, yes, one of the principles of theater is that it must be experienced as a whole, but there is so much benefit in allowing the students to envision it in their mind's eye and to bounce ideas off of one another in order to grasp the concept of those lessons.
Thank you. We hear that kind of comment from teachers all the time. I didn't know I'd gotten stale. I didn't know, and this will be a teacher's been teaching for 25 years. They're like, I will see teachers, and I've experienced this myself. The questions we get from students inside are sometimes so deep and thoughtful in our topics that, I've broken out in a sweat, like, oh God, do I know that? It's we get challenged every day, but that right, Nina? It's a little bit scary sometimes to like wow, I didn't think about it from that perspective ever. But it makes you a better teacher. I'm not going to do a lot more formal part, and we're going to open this up for conversations with you all, which I hope you have some questions or thoughts or comments. I will remind you, though, that even though we've got a big program that's well established at this point, when we started out, our first semester had like 11 students. And we stayed in that kind of 11 to 25 range for the first couple of years. And that's how programs start. They don't start with 500, they start small. So if you have opportunities to serve this population in your communities, there are ways to do it that are not overwhelming, and that I think you and your institutions will see a lot of benefit to, let alone the students that are waiting for you. Kate, is it possible to open it up for questions, and Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. You have until 2:30. So
You can put questions in the chat or just pop in or do a raise hand or whatever's easier for you. Is anyone there? Ah, faces. It's nice.
I don't know if this is just a strange question or if it's been fielded already, but I was wondering what sorts of majors people, or even master's degrees, what fields people have gravitated towards the most.
You mean students?
Yeah.
We're an associate program, so we do a liberal arts degree. Our most popular courses are probably sociology.
Okay.
Is one of the most interesting to our students. The science is a big seller, especially if it's experiential science with real laboratories and stuff. We're taking a telescope down into one of our classes in a few weeks, and the students are just like waiting with bated breath. Communications is always viewed as one of the life-changing things, and philosophy classes are very, very important. There are times over the years that I've walked through a yard in our largest prison that holds our most mature students. Some of the prisons are scaffolded more by age, and we'll hear furious arguments about Socrates versus Plato in the yard. It's like, oh dear, those are ours. So those kinds of classes are often the most requested, I'd say.
So does everyone transfer to like the main campus of Rutgers, or which?
Well, it's a choice. If we have some students who are there for 30, 40 years, and there is a small bachelor program that they can attach to within the prison. That's the major is called Justice Studies. It was a custom major done for this population. But when they leave, there's nothing that says they have to go to Rutgers. They go all over the place. Rutgers does have a very good, solid reentry support for people who are coming on campus, and they have three main campuses. They've got New Brunswick, they've got Newark, and they've got Camden and Rutgers. And people go to wherever is closest to home, most convenient, best for their major, that kind of thing. But it's not restricted to Rutgers. And I have a lot of people who come home that don't happen to live in my backyard. And so we work with them in the community college they're closest to, so they can finish their AA either there and take my credits there, or bring those credits back to us and finish, depending on where their credit balance is. Anybody have any questions, thoughts? Okay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
If nobody else has any other questions, we will go ahead and conclude the session. I do want to thank all the presenters. You did a wonderful job. And I do want to thank them for all their different perspectives on leading the program, teaching the program, and being part of the program. I am seeing a lot of comments of other people that thank you for your time and presenting on this program, which is a very unique program, but also definitely speaks to the JEDI model that you have heard about in other sessions as well, when it comes to equity and inclusion. So we are really thankful that we could have them here to speak today. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Thank you.